Tonight, a vote to vacate the seat of the Speaker.
All those in favor of the motion will please rise.
MPs polled on getting rid of Greg Fergus.
How many apologies and mistakes do you think are acceptable?
The claims of partisan politics. At the hands of Hamas, a hostage shares her story.
It was a nightmare. It was just hell.
And a question of credibility. The call-out and closing arguments at Donald Trump's criminal trial.
It's a very sad day. This is a dark day in America.
Plus, retail robbery. The new ways thieves are stealing from stores.
The larger thefts, group thefts, that's probably the biggest escalation.
And tipping the hat to Troop 17.
Proud and grateful to have been selected.
Recognizing the first females to serve in the RCMP.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Mirella Fernandez.
Good evening. The nays have it in the House of Commons. MPs just voted on a motion to oust the Speaker, with the Liberals and NDP aligning Greg Fergus will stay in his seat. Conservatives claim he's too partisan, which is why they've been pushing to bring him down. CTV's Michael Couture tonight with results.
Nays contre, 168, 168.
I declare the motion defeated.
With the support of the NDP, Greg Fergus survived a vote to remove him as Speaker of the House of Commons. But it doesn't mean opposition MPs are willing to put this behind them.
I am not sure that if I reported something to you, that you would treat me fairly, that I wouldn't have my issue twisted for partisan gain.
At a parliamentary committee hours before the vote, Conservatives questioned Fergus's ability to remain neutral. How do you respond to that?
I would ask them to judge me on what I end up, the decisions that I make.
But that past record is why Fergus has faced multiple calls to resign in his 7 months as Speaker.
It's such a great opportunity to speak about my longtime friend, John Fraser.
Fergus faced criticism and was forced to pay a fine after recording this video for the former Ontario Liberal interim leader while in his Speaker's robes. Then last week, the Liberal Party advertised a summer barbecue featuring Fergus, but also used partisan language attacking Pierre Poilievre and his so-called reckless policies.
But the last time I looked, in baseball, 3 strikes, you're out. And we got the Speaker now on 3 different occasions, or actually this is the 4th occasion.
The Liberals contend the accusations against the Speaker have an ulterior motive.
Claims today being made are entirely conjured in Conservative backrooms.
Just like
why?
Your support for Ukraine.
Because they wish to delay and disturb the proceedings of this House.
And that is the biggest problem, according to some political experts.
We are seeing that the transaction of business in Parliament can still happen even when decorum is absent.
With nearly half of MPs still not supporting Fergus as Speaker, debate in the House of Commons could get even more contentious over the next 3.5 weeks before Parliament takes a summer break. Mirella?
Just what we need, Mike. Thank you. The push to interfere in Democratic votes is in the spotlight tonight with the release of a report on intelligence sharing. The spy watchdog agency says during the last 2 federal elections, security officials didn't keep track of who knew what, and there was a disconnect between intelligence keepers and the government. CTV's Annie Barishaw-Oliver has that.
Canada's intelligence agencies consider foreign interference a significant threat, with China a major perpetrator. Yet a new report by Canada's intelligence watchdog says information is sometimes dismissed by the Prime Minister's highest security advisor. The gap between CSIS's point of view and that of the National Security and Intelligence Advisor is significant because the question is so fundamental. In 2021, CSIS and the Privy Council Office prepared reports on foreign interference by China, but Justin Trudeau's National Security Advisor felt it was standard diplomatic activity and didn't pass the information on to the Prime Minister.
What we're learning is that there is a problem with the reporting. The reporting isn't getting to the right people. We don't seem to have an accounting system as to who saw it, who got it, and then there isn't really a dialogue.
The report, which analyzed how intelligence related to foreign interference by China was shared from 2018 to 2023, found CSIS and Trudeau's national security advisor had disagreements and misalignments.
There is sometimes a different level of knowledge that can interfere with the movement of intelligence up the tree. There isn't a really strong national security culture in this country.
The report also revealed CSIS was inconsistent in terms of reporting different potential foreign interference threats and lacked the ability to definitively track who had received and read its intelligence.
What is alarming, of course, is that while the government has multiple agencies addressing this issue, they all disconnected.
But what the report calls unacceptable gaps in accountability, the public safety minister calls a problem of the past.
I think there has been a lot of improvement over the last number of years, and I have noticed myself the extent to which different pieces of intelligence are tracked in terms of who saw what when.
Another deep dive is being done on attempts to interfere in Canadian elections. But in her most recent report, the Commissioner of the Public Inquiry found that those attempts did not impact who formed government in either the 2019 or 2021 elections. Morella?
Annie, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Tonight, officials in Gaza say another deadly strike in Rafah has killed at least 20 people. Israel denies the attack. The IDF is pushing further into the heart of the city as displaced families in Rafah again pack up and flee, days after an airstrike ignited a firestorm and killed dozens. The UN Security Council convened an emergency meeting today to urge Israel to stop its military operation in Gaza. It comes as Norway, Ireland, and Spain move to formally recognize Palestinian statehood.
This is a historic decision that has a single goal: to contribute to achieving peace between Israelis and Palestinians.
The symbolic move coming during the IDF's ongoing offensive has angered Israel and its allies, who say support for a Palestinian state recognizes terrorism and the actions of Hamas. It was the action of Hamas on October 7th that reignited the conflict. The terrorist group massacred people in Israel and took more than 250 hostages. One of them, Hagar Brodich, was freed in November. She's now in Canada visiting family. She shares the story of her ordeal with CTV's Heather Wright tonight, explaining what it was like to be held captive in a conflict.
During the 51 days she was held by Hamas in Gaza, Hagar Brodich never lost track of what day it was. 6 months later, she's still counting.
It's 235 days today, and it's unbelievable.
Hagar, her husband Avihai, and their 3 children just arrived in Toronto, visiting family here over the summer and sharing their story. On October 7th, Hagar, her kids, and their 4-year-old neighbor were kidnapped from the safe room of their home and driven into Gaza.
There was a big crowd cheering and dancing and happy to see us in the car. A woman and 4 kids.
She says they were taken to a family's house and locked in a room.
It was a nightmare. It was just hell because you're locked in a small room with 4 of them.
They were kept there for just over 2 weeks, surviving on pita bread and water until an Israeli missile hit the building.
And then the house collapsed from the IDF bombs. We're lucky that we're here, that we survived this.
They were then put into an ambulance and moved to a second location where they stayed until they were released during the brief ceasefire in November.
Oria is 4.5. 4.5. And Yuval?
In October, we met Avihai in Tel Aviv. He was one of the first people to push the government to prioritize bringing the hostages home. It's the same message Hagar also has for those in charge.
We have to stop everything and bring them back home. Nothing is so important as them.
An estimated 36,000 Palestinians have been killed since this war began, which has devastated Gaza and shows no sign of ending soon.
I want to live in peace with my neighbors, and we have to find a solution for both of us, for Israel and for the Palestinians.
Hagar says her kids still want to be by her side and are startled by loud sounds. And while she doesn't think they'll ever go back to their home, she is confident they will build a new life together. Morella.
Heather Wright in Toronto. We are waiting to hear from an Ontario Superior Court judge on a motion from the University of Toronto. The institution filed an injunction to evict pro-Palestinian protesters from campus. Today, a group of professors spoke out in support of the encampment.
The students' demands would bring the University of Toronto into alignment with international law and its own policies on ethical investments and partnerships. The university is not above international law.
The university responded by saying the encampment limits free speech and has raised concerns over community safety. Let's get to a New York courtroom for the closing arguments of Donald Trump's criminal trial. The prosecution says the case is all about a conspiracy and a cover-up. The defense says no crimes were committed. The former American president accused of falsifying business records to hide hush money payments. CTV's Joy Melvin reports.
Donald Trump arrived at court with a big show of support from his family, daughter Tiffany, and two of his sons. In his closing argument, Trump's lawyer Todd Blanche ripped into Michael Cohen, the prosecution's key witness. He's literally like the MVP of liars. Blanche called Cohen a gloat, the greatest liar of all time. Trump's former lawyer and fixer pleaded guilty for his role in the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels, who threatened to go public about an alleged affair with Trump on the eve of the 2016 election. Blanche told jurors this was all Cohen. He lied to Congress. He lied to judges. He lied to his own family and stole thousands from the Trump organization. Blanche told the jury, "You cannot convict President Trump of any crime beyond a reasonable doubt on the word of Michael Cohen." Trump seemed very pleased with his lawyer, but prosecutor Joshua Steinglass said Cohen is not on trial here. Donald Trump is, reminding the jury that Trump hired him because he was willing to lie and cheat, telling the jury Cohen took the fall for Trump, hates his former boss, but says this trial is about a conspiracy and cover-up. Steinglass says Trump, Cohen, and National Enquirer publisher David Pecker engaged in a scheme to catch and kill damaging information, corruptly covering it up to help Trump win the White House. The former president faces 34 counts of falsifying business records and denies it all.
You think by yelling and intimidating.
Scuffling with Trump supporters, actor Robert De Niro and January 6 police officers there to remind Americans what's at stake.
This is the time to stop him by voting him out once and for all. We don't want to wake up after the election saying, "What, again?"
A lot is weighing on this jury. 7 men and 5 women begin deliberating tomorrow to either acquit or convict Donald Trump in the first criminal trial of a former president. Morella?
Watching carefully. Thanks, Joy. It seems like retailers are being ripped off more these days. It's not just a shoplifter on a grab and go. Break-ins are bigger and thieves are getting away with much more. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth tonight looks at the trend, forcing retailers to find new ways to manage the merchandise.
Theft from retail stores in Canada is alarmingly on the rise.
General shoplifting.
Now, group theft is also a growing problem. Large numbers of thieves are blitzing stores, leaving with massive amounts.
Shopping carts full, bagfuls of merchandise, and they're also now doing it with weapons, so it's turning into robbery.
Store employees trying to stop shoplifters are being assaulted. The Retail Council of Canada is meeting this week to find new tactics. Pre-pandemic stats showed retail crime caused $5 billion in losses. Rui Rodriguez says that number is now likely much higher. Organized crime is also a concern. Retail items are often stolen before even reaching stores.
Trailers being stolen from yards, in transport.
Food theft has also escalated dramatically over the past 5 years.
Sometimes you have internal employees involved, and these thefts will include thousands and thousands of dollars of food products.
It all adds up to a no-win situation for many Canadian retailers and shoppers.
The more and more theft that occurs ultimately is going to affect costs. So those people that are buying goods legitimately at a very high price are going to be paying more because of the retail theft.
Public safety analyst Chris Lewis says there are tools retail stores can use to try to minimize theft and protect merchandise going forward.
Where is the high value stuff in relation to the exit? Most stores want it up front so people see it when they come in, but in other cases they're moving it and putting it in place so it's harder to get it out the door.
The retail sector is coordinating closely with law enforcement. Store operators are also bolstering security presence and adding high-tech surveillance equipment. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
A starved dog has been found abandoned in Guelph, Ontario in horrifying conditions. Rescuers discovered a chihuahua named Cleo trapped inside an in-ground toilet tank covered in human waste.
We all felt some disbelief and shock that when she was found under those conditions, she was scared, nervous. The only way that she could have wound up in the tank was for her to have been put in there.
Cleo was malnourished and underweight. The Humane Society believes she did not eat for several days. Coming up, a history-making moment. An Indigenous lawmaker speaks the language of change. Plus, the Mounties mark half a century of women on the force. He was disciplined for speaking his language at a residential school decades ago. And today, Saul Mamakwa made history by speaking that same language in the Ontario legislature. CTV's Mike Walker reports.
A historic moment as NDP Deputy Leader Saul Mamakwa rose in the chamber speaking in Oji-Cree.
I am speaking for those that couldn't use their language.
Marking the first time the Ontario legislature has allowed interpreted and transcribed a language other than English and French.
Today was really monumental for me.
For about 10 minutes, Mamakwa spoke about the significance of speaking in the language his parents taught him and being punished for it decades ago at a residential school.
It's not just for show, it's a way of life, it's who we are, it's who I am. There's people from across the province, across the country that need to, get our languages back.
He then questioned the government about the lack of long-term care beds in Northern Ontario.
Well, the government finally come through on their 2018 promise.
I'm committing today in the public, we will be building those beds.
The Premier then crossing the floor to embrace Mamakwa, an empowering and emotional moment with about 100 supporters and family members watching from the gallery, including Mamakwa's mother, who turned 79 years old today.
It's decency. We need to be treated and looked at with decency.
As well as First Nation leaders and residential school survivors.
It's a great accomplishment because for too long we were forbidden to speak our language.
We need to revitalize our First Nation language.
His speech and question marking a step towards reconciliation.
Mamakwa's words will also be documented in an Indigenous writing system in the official record of the Queen's Park proceedings. Today, he vowed to continue to speak in his language when addressing the legislature. Mike Walker, CTV News.
Straight ahead, a league of their own.
And from nothing will come everything.
The spotlight on women's sports as soccer goes pro in Canada. The unstoppable rise of women's pro sports is everywhere around us. On the pitch, a new soccer league is scoring big wins with its new name and a bigger player pool. Here's CTV's Kathy Lee.
For most of these players, soccer has played a big part of their lives.
Since I was 3, so I just turned 23, so about 20 years now.
Passion isn't lacking, but what is are options to play in a pro league in Canada.
Played for the University of Calgary here and then did 1 year in Iceland. I've got friends in France, Australia, Ireland, just because there's no opportunities here, so they all have to go abroad.
Next year, that will change. Canada's Women's Professional League kicks off in April. Its new name, Northern Super League, unveiled Tuesday.
Oh, it's so cool. It's almost mysterious, but cool. Like, I don't know how to put into words, but yeah, it's awesome.
6 Canadian cities will host teams. Montreal and Ottawa are the newest additions, joining Calgary, Vancouver, Halifax, and Toronto.
This is about building out the soccer pool and high performance pathways and opportunities for Canadians across the country.
Its creation will not just open doors for players.
It's for female coaches, female referees, female managers, female team owners. It's just a whole platform of leadership in different directions.
And some of these players are shooting for big goals.
It'll push me mentally, it'll push me physically, just to try and get into playing on this Calgary team, or if not, playing at one of the other 5 teams that have now been announced.
Major strides for a league gearing up for its highly anticipated debut. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Calgary.
After the break, a milestone march honoring the first female Mounties. They were the first female RCMP officers ever sworn in 50 years ago. There were 32 of them. They broke barriers, putting down a path for so many others to follow. CTV's Garrett Berry tonight with a look back at Troop 17.
Marching in their traditional uniforms, just like the first women did 50 years ago.
Be unnoticed, stay out of the limelight. We didn't go there thinking, oh, we're going to be trailblazers, we're going to pave the way. There was none of that.
32 women made up that first troop, Troop 17, and 3 of them were from Newfoundland and Labrador. Looking back, some say maybe the force wasn't quite ready for those first female officers.
We weren't allowed to have pockets because it would protrude, and they wanted us totally streamlined. We had a purse that carried our handcuffs and our gun, a handbag over our shoulder.
But for 32 years, Courtney worked in the RCMP, moving up the ranks, providing security detail for some very important people, and ultimately inspiring some of the top brass today.
If you don't see somebody doing something that you would like to do, it's hard to aspire to do that. And so they broke that barrier.
When that first call for female recruits went out, Courtney had a brother in the RCMP, so policing was already on her mind.
I was in an office type of a career, and I wanted something that would offer to me adventure, travel, working outside.
Women now make up about a quarter of the force. For many, working inside the RCMP was a challenge. A class action lawsuit in 2017 shared stories of harassment and abuse. The force is now trying to tackle the issues with a Center for Harassment Resolution that was created in 2021. Today, though, all the focus was on those original officers, the barriers they faced and broke. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
And just a note tonight that CTV National News has won Best National Newscast at the Canadian Screen Awards. So a very big congratulations to the entire team who gets the show to air each and every day. I'm Marella Fernandez. Omar is back with you tomorrow. Good night.